Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, well, first of all, everyone should recognize our guest. We have Rachael back on the podcast. It's been only like 3 months, but I mean, it's the quickest that we've ever had a guest back on. But hey, she's worth it because she had just got done competing for the season, and now she's sort of in her little off season for a while. But she won that show that I was, telling everyone that she would win. So I called it. Everyone, I was right on that. But yeah, she's on here to talk, more about what it's been like the last few months and what her current plans are. But again, Rachael, thank you so much for coming back on.
No, thank you. Honestly, I love obviously your podcast and I love what you advocate. Yeah, happy to be back.
I gotta ask, because I ask this every single time. I'm gonna continue asking it every single time. What's the weather like today in your neck of the woods?
Do you know what? It's been the weirdest weather. It's been on and off rain. So like 1 minute it's been really, really sunny, really hot, and then rain, cloud.
Wasn't that like the isn't like the whole UK though? It's just dreary and kind of cloudy a little bit. So hey, I don't know. That's just what in the media. That's what it seems to always be portrayed. I mean, it's
It is
sunny.
always
Yeah,
raining. It's always raining.
that seems like it kind of like goes with the territory. But I'm also, I mean, yeah, it's sunny here, so we got nice weather. So I don't hopefully want to jinx it. But yeah, what has this whole 2 months, 3 months been like for you? Because like you said, I mean, you won your show, and then now you're a pro now. So what has this whole journey been like for you these last couple of months?
Yeah, it's been um I didn't actually get my pro card this season. Um, but it's okay. No, honestly. So I won the first show, won the overall in the first show, and it was amazing feeling to obviously because it's what you work towards. Um, and then I then went on to the next show, which was 2 weeks later, which was the pro qualifier. Again, the lineup was incredible. Like these women were amazing. And do you know what? I was actually although that result didn't turn out the way I envisioned it, I was happier with that because I stood up there and I fitted in, and that for me kind of was more that was more important to me. But yeah, that again, that was still a great show. I came in a lot fuller, so I brought a different look to the stage, which I did on purpose. I wanted to kind of play the size game a little bit. Um, but it just wasn't what they were looking for that day. So it's good. It's all good.
What was the feedback that you got from the judges on what you needed to work on or what they were looking for?
So the feedback that I got was basically just muscle maturity, which again I was on stage with ladies who are amazing, but they had years on me. Um, so yeah, for me, it's just they said I had great symmetry and balance, but just basically just keep going. And actually, probably an off season was the best thing that I could do right now, just to keep improving.
That's the one thing that I've always found interesting about the sport is that yeah, it's the more years that you have in it, the better that most people assume that you're going to do, which is funny because in every other sport, I mean, usually the younger you are, the better you're going to be just because of your potential. But yeah, that's what I've just found so fascinating about this sport. But how were these two competitions held? Because I know that I mean there was lockdowns in the UK probably like right after I talked to you, and everything was just going crazy with that. So what was the shows like? Was it everything like super like top notch, like COVID wise, or how did they deal with all that? Because with that new strand that was really hitting the UK hard, how did you deal with that with all the competitions?
So yeah, it was, to be honest, it was a miracle that the shows are actually able to run. So basically, the shows had to be held in kind of like it wasn't outside, but it was in you know kind of a marquee that they set up outside. Um, and yeah, fair play because they had all the tanning inside there. They had room for all the athletes to pump up. They had stage. Still, they had stage lighting rigged. So yeah, it was able to run like a proper show. Um, but it just obviously just felt very different not having spectators. There was only the judges, and obviously coaches allowed backstage. So yeah, again, I mean, things are gradually getting less and less strict as time goes on with the COVID situation. But yeah, the shows at the start of the year, again, we had to just follow guidelines, which but yeah, again, I think it was great that they were still able to run and give us somewhere to show because we'd all worked super hard. So
What was your post-show meal for both those shows?
you're going to be really disappointed in me. Um, so um, basically, after the first show, I came off and I just wanted to get straight back on plan. So I know, I know.
What a waste. What a waste. No, I'm just kidding.
But do you know what? Like, for me, I did that because in my head the job wasn't done yet. Does that make sense? Like, I knew I had a show coming up in the next 2 weeks, and I was just like, it was late, and I thought, no, let's just get back into it. Um, and then after the second show, then um, what I like to do is I like to obviously you come off stage. The first thing I like to do is just get some more water back in, and just something like some fruit or something, just because you just feel. Although I didn't really drop my water really low, I just felt a bit kind of dehydrated, and you know. So yeah, just something like some fresh fruit and some water, and then I like to leave it a couple of days, um, and then I went out for food just because I like to. I think sometimes you can get off, and because you're hungry, you just want to turn to anything. So I think it's nice to just allow, just chill out a little, spend some time with friends and family, and then then go out for some food. So
How have you been dealing with the post-show rebound? How has that whole process been like for you, especially during this, wild year that we're already having?
um yeah, so I've actually coped pretty well because as soon as I kind of got off, my coach already sent me through like ideas of what we're going to achieve for the next off season. I mean, she's great like that. Like, there's always something to work towards. So I think as long as you've got kind of those goals in place, yeah, the rebound phase hasn't been too bad. I've coped pretty well with it.
So what are your goals that you have for this off season? What would you like to achieve?
So I would like to take. It's going to be a long one. I'm going to take at least 12 to 18 months to improve. Um, and my goal is just to keep building quality muscle in the right places, and just keep working towards the ultimate goal, which is in the future, which is to be in the women's bodybuilding division. So for me, I think it's become less of chasing the pro card and more chasing the physique. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
100%. Yeah, I mean, a pro card, you can win a pro card with like not that great of it. It just depends on the shows and stuff like that. So yeah, just actually, becoming an actual bodybuilder. Yeah, that seems like it's much more of a, harder goal, and it's a better goal really to have. But what is the one body part that you're looking forward to growing the most during this off season?
Um, so when we sort of looked at my physique on stage, I think the parts that I'm going to put more extra attention to is my calves and my triceps, because I've got my biceps are a lot stronger than my triceps. My triceps are good, but they don't have that kind of pop that other parts of my body have, and the same with my calves. They just need to come up. So again, I'm just going to continue to work on that. Back days, I'm going to stick with only once a week because my back was pretty strong. And yeah, and I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing before, but with those body parts, just kind of extra volume on them.
Are you enjoying the less cardio now that you have to do?
Yes and no, because it's really hard because you feel like you should be doing more with more food, but really it's the opposite. Like, because you're trying to grow. So yeah, I just it's nice not having to like have to do it, but I still try, and I just go for a walk, really, to be honest, just to keep steps in. So
Well, and one thing that we touched base on last time that I want to touch base on a little bit more, because we've had you back on so quickly again, is how do you deal with all this transformation mentally? Because like you go from one extreme to the other when you go from your off season look to your about to step on stage look. Where I mean, if I were to look that good in the mirror, just personally myself, I'd be like, oh my god, I never want to eat anything ever again. I'll just basically starve until I die, and that'll be the end. But hey, I'll go out in a blaze of glory. But how do you deal with that ever changing body? Because I mean, mentally, that's the hardest thing for so many of these competitors.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? I was talking to a couple of the guys that I trained with today about this, and I said, like, I feel like females especially
Yeah.
really, really struggle.
Men seem to embrace it more and just be like, okay, yeah, I can finally put on some weight now and actually like eat some stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And before, like, I used to get really, really stressed about it. I gotta be honest, I used to, but then the thing that made me change is actually your off-season body or your improvement season body is the body you are in most of your life, actually. So you need to learn to just accept that that is you. That's just not the version of you that's on stage for 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, and I think that it's something that kind of needs to be tackled a lot more somehow with a lot of women in the industry, because yeah, it's not nice. It's not nice to see.
Oh my god, and it's just with the general public is so misled where they think that, that bodybuilding look is one thing that you can, keep forever, and it's like, no, that is just not possible. You are going to have to put on weight. But how long into your off season before your lifts start to come back to sort of like normally what they are? Is it quick for you like some people, or does it take longer for you? How long before you find like, oh, I can finally lift what I was lifting, before I went super strict on my prep?
So for me, again, I don't know how it comes back quite quick. I don't know if I do. It does come back really quick. Yeah, I don't. Again, I think it's just my mentality. I mean, obviously, I've got to be careful because of the way my mind is. I do push myself to the extreme. So I've got to bear in mind that, Rachel, you've been, your joints need to get warm again. You need to, feel some weight again. So I do need to pace myself, but overall, my strength does come back quite fast.
So how do you deal also, and that's great too, because yeah, some people it takes them forever, but how do you deal with being in an off season now during the summertime when everyone wants to be in, like their bikini shape, especially now
I
if
know.
COVID gets locked, if all the restrictions get lifted even more, where people are like going out on beaches and partying, how do you deal with that knowing that like people know you as the bodybuilder, but the off season Rachel, I mean, if they see her like in a bikini on the beach, they're like, oh, does she even really work out really anymore? It's like it's hard for so many people that a lot of times for people, especially in Europe, because I think more in America they have their shows during the summer, so then everyone gets ready for the summer. But in Europe, I find especially most of their shows are in the springtime or in the fall. So how do you deal with that being in prep when most other people would expect you not to be?
Um, I just, like you've just got to actually just. I think that's when you're doing it for you and not for anyone else. Um, because actually, I think all in all, I feel better. I don't feel tired all the time. I've got time for other things. So you got to look at the positives as well. My lifts are going up. My performance is better in the gym. Um, and do you know what? Like, I find actually I've learned to. I think as you progress and as the more muscle I've managed to gain, I don't tend, like, body fat wise, I don't tend to put a great deal on, just enough to give me the energy to lift heavy. Basically, that's all you need. Um, so yeah, I try to maintain like a shape that I feel confident in.
Yeah. And that's great as well. And another thing that I want to talk to you about is that, like, I saw the last time that we had you on, I saw your photos of like this last year as opposed to this year. You put on so much size this last year. But unfortunately, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. I don't think you can probably do that again, because if you put on that much amount of size for this next year, I mean, I don't even know if we could fit you in this screen here. But how are you gonna deal with that, knowing that like I can work even harder than last time? But it's just sort of like beginner gains, which I love to talk about, where it's like, yeah, you're gonna put on a lot of stuff, early on, but then it plateaus. So how are you dealing with that, knowing that like I can work 10 times as hard as I did last year, but I'm still not gonna see, you're still gonna see some changes, and you're gonna get bigger, and you're gonna see more results, but you're not gonna see that same amount of change that you saw from this last prep.
Yeah, and I've thought about that because obviously, you know, it's gonna be yeah, that is gonna be the case. The changes are gonna be micro compared to the last transformation. Um, but yeah, I guess now it's more really targeting, as like we said, like those areas that needed coming up. And I think it's just accepting that now it's kind of about we just keep refining, we just keep really like targeting those smaller areas. And yeah, and just using it as motivation really. Like, if I was capable of that, what could I do now moving forward with the knowledge I've got now, if that makes sense? Because, a lot of those years before, um, I mean, I definitely did my research, but it could have been better. So now at least I'm going into this with um, a lot more clarity with certain things and a lot more clarity with where I want to go with it.
Because like you said, you're also going on like a 12 to 18 week or month break. How do you keep that motivation? Because if it was me and I knew that like I had a year to work on this, there might be a couple days where I'd be like, oh, just relax today and not do as much. And how do you keep that when your goal is so far away? Because there's a huge difference between that and saying like, oh, let's take like maybe like 3 months to see what I can gain or whatever. How are you dealing with that? Just that all out there, because I'm just saying that, I'm just asking that because for me personally, like I said, I mean, that would be a conundrum for me. It's like, oh, I have this much time, I can just take it easy.
Yeah. For me, I've yeah, I don't know. I've just
I'm a
always been.
slacker, okay? And unless it's something that I care about, like this podcast, I mean, I wait until the last minute, like homework in school. I'm the kid that's up till like 2 a.m. the night before, getting it done the next day when I had like 3 weeks to work on it. That's me, really, in a nutshell.
Yeah, do you know? And it's really strange actually because I people always laugh about laugh at me about this, but I'm like that with other aspects of my life. I'm like, yeah, do it tomorrow.
Oh,
Like,
I'd be the guy doing like 10,000 curls like for a week straight before the show, and just because I hadn't done anything before then, be like, oh, I hope they get bigger and I hope I look good. So yeah, that's just that's my thing right there, really.
I think, yeah, but for me, I because it that's it's a tough one. I've just always found it really easy to be self motivated. Um, and I think my personality, I quite like my own time, like being in my own space. I'm quite an introvert, so for me, I find I don't really need any outside sources to kind of motivate me. So it's always come from within. Um, but I find some people, which is absolutely fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but some people need that motivation from others. But which is why lockdown was probably quite good for me because I could just really like focus in on the task.
Well, on top of that, too, I think one thing that's going to impact so many of my other guests who might not be as introverted as you is that, like you said, this was a perfect opportunity, especially for bodybuilders with this lockdown, where I mean, you can just focus on lifting, you can just focus on that. But now that things are starting to open up again, do you think that there'll be any struggle, even though you are an introvert, with being able to see friends again and being able to go out, or do you think that because you're in an off season, it'll be much easier for you to sort of be able to relegate your time?
Yeah, definitely. I think in off season it's a lot. It is easier to find time for people, as horrible as that sounds. You still got to obviously get your meals in, get your workouts in, but you know it has that slight, yeah, it's definitely more lenient. You can, find those times where you can go out for food with friends. Do you know what I mean? And you know and things like that. So I definitely try and be balanced.
Throughout this podcast already, we've seen your forearms and they're still veiny as hell. Do they ever go away even in your off season, or are you just one of those natural people where you're just like a doctor's delight, where when you're going to get a shot there, so when you're going to get your COVID vaccine, they're like, okay, this is the easiest shot I'm ever gonna have to do?
I just realized that actually. yeah, my forearms have always been really vascular. Even in my off season, they are the one things that stay vascular, to be honest.
Yeah, my nurse friends would be like, "Oh my god, she's my ideal patient. I don't even have to do anything. I can just, stick the needle right in and we're good to go." So that's one thing.
Yeah,
One thing that I noticed.
yeah, because obviously I get my bloods done to make sure I'm healthy. Um, I get that done with Transform now, with a doctor called Imran Khan. He's incredible. And he, when I went to his office, the nurse was like, "Oh my god, so easy to find, so easy to find a vein." So yeah, it's definitely but yeah, again, I think they're just quite vascular, and my chest stays fairly vascular as well.
Yeah. Which that's always an interesting thing too when you go from off season to prep, because I mean they basically become pecs during the prep, but then off season they become breasts basically. So I've always just found that fascinating. Where it's like, God, that change that makes, it's that's the most impressive one out of all. So it's like, oh my God, they become two different things. But when it comes to just the nutrition aspect of it too, how much more nutrition, how many more calories do you normally have in your off season than you do your prep? Because some people, I mean, I've had guests on that literally it's like 2 or 3 times as much.
So I always think just as long as you allow yourself with somewhere to go. So obviously we came out of the prep and we just gradually added in. So didn't go straight up. Um, and then obviously as the gyms reopened and I went back to the gym, and obviously my weights are increasing, I just got hungrier, so we added a little bit more. So yeah, just obviously the heavier we're going and the more muscle we want to accumulate, we just add more food. I mean, it feels like a lot more. And I think with me, I just go for a lot more variety in the off season. So every meal I like to have in the off season a different meat source, because I've got that time to cook it. I've got and it keeps it interesting. And so I have steak for one meal. I might have salmon for another meal, and then chicken. But in prep, because I like things to just be quick, easy, simple, it would just stick to like chicken and whitefish. Do you know what I mean? So
And what was that like going back to the gym for the first time?
yeah, it's so weird. It was so strange. Um, because being on my own for so long, I'd forgotten even like what I'd achieved. So when I went back to the gym, I still had people coming up to me asking me about the show, and I was like almost taken back. Like, that was ages ago, but they haven't seen me because I've just been hidden away. But yeah, it's very, very strange feeling being back. But I've gradually gotten back into it, and I'm really, I am loving being back, because there are just certain things that you can't do at home.
It really makes or breaks it. And there's some times where, yeah, just that atmosphere and the people alone are what makes it, people able to go back and, still keep training, because it's a big focus for a lot of people. But being that you help people with posing and you're a coach and stuff, how is the pandemic sort of, now that's, I'm not saying it's coming to an end, but it's getting better. Has that helped with business a lot? Do you find that you're getting a lot more clients now?
Yeah, and it definitely, because now the show season has started again. People can see that there are shows coming up now mid to end of the year, which won't have the same restrictions that mine did either. So yeah, a lot more people getting ready for shows. So that's definitely been great. Yeah, and I love my clients. Like, they all work super, super hard. So I can't. I'm lucky. I'm lucky.
Well, and the best thing too is that I need to get some motivation for some people out there, because so many people I think are just coming out of the woodwork now in this next few weeks, or if they already have, from like just spending a year of basically doing nothing, no working out, no nothing. So what advice do you have for them just to get started up again? Because not even for the people that haven't worked out anymore, but I'm talking for me, I took like 2 months off because I went on such long walks at one point where I had a blister that turned into a thing where I could almost see the muscle, or I could almost see the bone in my heel, because it got so bad because I just kept ignoring it. So then I had to take like 2 months off, really, just for the thing to heal. And now it still is a little bad, but I'm gonna start walking out again and then start lifting. But what advice do you have for people that are just looking to get started again? Because I mean, let's be honest, I think a lot of people have gained some weight, including me. I gained about like 10, 15 pounds, but I'm one of those psychos where I have such the energy for walking that I can burn that off in a week, and it's, it's no problem. But what advice do you have for people just to get started up again, or just to get started in general? Because I think this is going to be an interesting time where I think a lot of people are going to be self-conscious now, even more after this, just knowing that they put on some size, and that a lot of people just don't know how to get back into it then, because they've just been so used now to just lying around.
Okay, so I would say, first of all, eliminate any guilt, because it's done now. Don't feel guilty ever about decisions that you've made, because it's in the past. So go into this now with a fresh mind, as if it's a new year. Just treat this month now as, this is the new year, new goals, forget what's happened, um, and I think just start a clean slate. Because I think it's been quite a nice opportunity for people to kind of think that, like, have that break. Don't feel guilty about having that cake. Don't feel like you shouldn't have done that, and just go into it with a fresh mind. Um, and I think secondly, just get started. That is all you need to do. Don't worry about having the latest, footwear for the gym. Don't worry about having the best logbook, everything being really clean cut. Just go in with what you've got and just get started.
Yeah, which, I mean, let's be honest, no one cares what shoes you have or what you're. I mean, if anyone does, first of all, they're a psychopath, and don't even associate yourself with them, because who in their right mind would be like, I'm going to judge that person because they're wearing some weird shoes that I don't like. Where, yeah, I don't. I mean, I've seen that happen before, but that's, one in a million, where people are just like, oh my god, yeah, I don't even get why that person's like that. But yeah, I mean, just, yeah, getting started. That's the biggest one right there. But I mean, especially, being that you are in this lifestyle where, just you see these highs and lows, and, it's just the mental fortitude that you have to have. How do you think that mental attitude has helped you in other aspects of your life? Because we talked about that confidence boost last time that has impacted you, and it impacts everyone, but it's also that mental fortitude where, I mean, if you do a prep, you can really do anything. And it's like people that kind of like join the military, or they go to war, and then they come back and they say, like, oh, I can accomplish anything because I've seen that. So what? But it's similar in a sort of way, where you're just like, oh, I've gone through a prep, or I've torn my body apart. How have you used that, that attitude in other aspects? Because I think that it just impacts it so much more, not positively, but just better for you.
Yeah, I definitely think bodybuilding has, yeah, it's given me so much structure in, like, all aspects of my life. And I think if you can kind of achieve, if you can, like, sort of recreate your physique, it makes you think, what else can I recreate? Does that make sense? And also, I think because it's such an independent sport, it makes you realize that a lot of stuff you can do on your own. You don't. I mean, obviously, surround yourself with positive people by all means, but you can do a lot by yourself, and you can accomplish so much within yourself.
That's the only problem, is that you're gonna have a lot of thoughts by yourself, and that's, if you're like me and you're just like, oh my god, that's some weird stuff that I'm thinking of right now. You gotta really be able to focus in and be like, oh my god, why am I thinking about that? Especially if I'm on like bike rides and stuff like that, and I'm just thinking like, why am I thinking this stuff? It's nothing
Yeah,
bad or anything like that. It's just like you're thinking about stuff that you never thought about since you were like in third grade or whatever. And you're like, why did I do that when I was in fourth grade or something? It's like, why am I even? So yeah, you gotta worry about that though, because when you do get lonely, I mean, your mind does tend to wander a little bit. But yeah, and especially, the lonely part, like you said, this is a very individual sport, and I'm a person, like you can tell, I need to talk to people, otherwise, I just lose my wires and my brain's gonna explode. So, and I did live that lifestyle, the bodybuilding lifestyle, for a few years in college, but like I said, I never competed, and that was hard for me. So, how do you, even though you are an introvert, I mean, let's be honest, everyone needs personal attention and, affection and stuff. So, how do you deal with that, being, that you're in a sport that requires you to be more independent than the average person?
um, yeah, it is tough for me. I think, I found that sometimes it's nice to actually be around somebody, or be around people that don't necessarily do what you do, because what we do is so consuming, and it is very selfish, and I love it, but that is the truth of it. It's nice where you can just maybe sit down and listen to something completely different, like nothing to do with fitness or bodybuilding. It can be really refreshing. um And yeah, it just takes you out of it for a bit, but not doesn't take you out of it. It just, educates you on something else. Yeah. So I think definitely having positive people in your life, that maybe people that have other interests that they're passionate about.
I mean, I have a friend that's a PA, and all they talk about is medical stuff. And I was like, I don't give a crap about anything that you're saying, but it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear something else. Yeah, it's nice to hear something else. It's like, I don't care really, but hey, it's more. I really enjoy hearing that. But now for a fun question: if you could train with any other competitor, who would it be and why?
Ooh. Okay. So male right now would be the current 212 Mr. Olympia, Sean Carida. I just love what he's about. I love his motivation. I love his drive. I love his old school kind of training methods, hard and heavy. So he would be definitely number one at the moment. And female, female. Probably like somebody like Elena Popa, because I love her physique, and I think I could learn so much from her kind of techniques that she's used in the gym, and things like that. Because I think when you see a female's physique that you really like and you can really relate to, I think that would be really kind of inspiring to train with. So
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, you have all the time in the world because she's only 22 years old. Everyone, so I mean, good God, it's just. Oh my God, yeah, she's got all the time in the world to really do that. And do you ever get worried knowing that you are so young and you are going so hard in this sport that, because a lot of people, they start in their 30s and you're starting so young. Do you ever like worry that like, hey, I don't want to burn myself out, so young, because that has happened before to some people. But I mean, and with your body too, I mean, it's all about finding out what's the right amounts of, like cardio, nutrition and stuff like that for your body. Do you ever get worried that like, hey, maybe I'm like just going too hard too fast?
um, no,
Yeah.
no.
Well, I was gonna say, if you did have
But
that mindset, I wouldn't even believe that you were a competitor in the first place, because you kind of have to have not that attitude if you ever want to really compete. Yeah.
I think with me, I've never really I get I it's only when people remind me that I kind of sit back and go, "Oh yeah, like I'm that age." But because I'm kind of surrounded by people who are obviously older because of the sport, I never kind of let the age kind of affect the attitude I have towards it. So and again, that can actually play with my head a little bit because I expect so much from myself already. But yeah, I think it's motivated me actually, um, and and that is why like I'd like to also inspire younger girls to aim for those kind of classes, because I think otherwise they're gonna, you know, classes like women's physique and women's bodybuilding are gonna die out.
What are some of the hobbies that you've, like you said, you have more free time now to do other stuff. So what are you doing now other than working out and being a coach? What do you like to do in that other free time now that you have a lot more of?
Um, so I do like to go on. I like to see different places and just go and explore them. Like I'm very like, when I'm in off season and I've got a rest day, I like to be quite impulsive like that. I just want to search somewhere that looks really scenic, go have a really nice walk or maybe like a hike, because it's and again, I'm not thinking about doing it for fitness. I just like to go and explore and see things. Again, I'm really like the simple things, like just meeting up for coffees and things like that. I like to read, so I'm really getting back into that properly, because when you're on prep, you just don't want to.
You can't read, let's be honest, in prep. You just can't. I mean,
You
it's yeah.
can't. You
You
just think,
become you become dyslexic even if you aren't already dyslexic. I mean, that's really what it is. Where like your mind is just so scrambled that yeah, if you could get through a whole book, I wouldn't believe you.
yeah, it just you can't do it. And I'm a real creative, so obviously coming from my background with dance and stuff, I like to kind of spend a lot of time creating work for my clients, like their routines and stuff. So I've got the energy to do that. So yeah, and that's and I do want to travel a little bit, but obviously that depends on COVID restrictions.
Have you tried to do any of your old dance moves with the body that you have now? Because that must be kind of difficult.
It is. I was the upper body is the hardest. My legs are still pretty flexible, but yeah, there's certain things which, again, I'm trying to keep nice and flexible, but it's especially going into the off season, it's really hard.
Let's be honest, you're never going to see a bodybuilding ballerina. It's just never going to happen. I mean, they just don't have. That's one thing that you sacrifice, when you start to put on muscles. A lot of times you do sacrifice your flexibility. But you told me before, so you're coming to the States soon and you're going to be with Sheila Bleak?
Yes, so again, dependent on COVID restrictions, but yeah, that's going to be awesome. I mean, she's been great as well. Like, she helped me so much. Just not just with like posing, but like the knowledge of the industry and things like that. So, and yeah, I've been surrounded by really, really empowering women in this prep. So also Lisa Cross, I don't know if you know her, she's a female bodybuilder from the UK. She's been great. Again, just a real support, like a text, a phone call away, on those days in prep where you feel like, you know, you're not doing so good. And then, last but not least, my coach, Lisa Gelsey, who is incredible, like she's been there every single step of the way. And even post show, I think a lot of coaches really neglect that, like you said, that post show blues that their client goes through. But she prepared us. So we had plans for every eventuality of the outcome. So yeah, she's great. So yeah, I just think it's important to have the right people around you.
That makes the difference. I mean, that makes the biggest difference. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, if you have that family that supports you, if you have that outside support system, that makes this sport so much easier. And I mean, I've heard so many horror stories of people, their family might not have been that supportive, or that makes it 10 times as hard. And that's just unnecessary, that I really feel of. But like I asked you last time, if we were to talk to you, a year from today, but we probably will then, because you'll be ready for your show. But I mean, obviously you're not going to be competing within the next year or the next 12 months, but what other goals do you have, other than maybe just bodybuilding or just fitness goals in general, that you have that you would like to see achieved within a year?
So I would like my posing and my coaching to kind of just continue to get quality clients. Because for me, it's about getting clients, but it's about getting quality clients that want to listen to you. And just people who want to work hard. So that's a goal. Another goal is to just keep empowering men and women, just to really like just go for your dreams.
Oh my God, you're just as empowering to men as you are to women, just because they're like, she's 22 years old and she looks like that. It's like, damn, I'm 26. I need to get off my ass and, start, training heavy. That's even what I'm saying to myself. So yeah, you work both ways with that one.
And physical, like in the gym. So I've got obviously like performance goals, like with certain weights I want to hit.
Okay, what are your weight goals? I'm gonna hold you to them right now. I'm gonna write them down, and then we're gonna talk to you and see if you achieved them.
Okay, I'll tag you on Instagram.
Yeah.
So in my off season last time, on my dumbbell shoulder press, I managed to get up to 32.5s for 6 reps.
We're talking kilograms, right?
We're talking kilograms in the UK.
32.5. I was like, yeah, that for pounds, that's that's all right. But yeah, okay, so for kilograms, yeah, that's a hell of a lot more impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what it is in pounds.
It's like it's like 70 or 80 or something like that. So yeah, it is really impressive.
Yeah. So I would like to get to this time around. Again, it's not, bodybuilding is a funny one because it's not just about pressing.
You're not. It's not about lifting as much as you can.
But for good form, good amount of reps, I'd like to hit the 35 kgs for a good 8 to 10 reps. Definitely. And I mean good form, low, really engage in the muscle. And yeah, just performance goals, just to stay, although obviously I'm going to get a bit heavier, just to stay feeling fit. So I want to keep some HIIT cardio in, just to keep it like fun, and just stay feeling healthy, because sometimes even in off season we can feel a little like we can get to that point where we're pushing food and we feel a little sluggish. So I just want to try and avoid that a little bit.
What's the fate of the garage gym now that you're not going to be using it as much?
Oh, I really miss it. Yeah, I am still going to use it for certain like days, like arm days and stuff like that, where maybe I don't want to travel to the gym or something. But yeah, I'll definitely still use it, and you know, it's nice sometimes just to go in there and just sounds really silly, but just do a bit of a pump, have a little walk on the treadmill, and just be in there on your own for a little bit.
Oh, I'm a
Um,
gym bro. I know what you're talking about when you say just go in there and get a little pump. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it just, but yeah, and I'm glad that it's there though, because it's just so ideal, you know, especially now with the off season where I can be more flexible. You know, if I want to go out with friends, time wise, I can just work out in the house. So
Yeah. And you also mentioned lastly, last few questions that you're a posing coach now too. So what's the number one thing that you deal with that people struggle with the most when it comes to posing? Because like we talked about last time, that is the unknown art where a lot of people struggle with it more than anything else.
So I would say the number one is definitely lat spread. 100% is lat spread. And it's the hardest one actually to get somebody to really feel and engage with. Um, yeah, it's that. I think it's because everything else seems so obvious. Like, you know, it's because you've got to literally move your lats without using an arm, or do you know what I mean, to assist. So what I do is with clients I've got now is I tell them when they're in the gym working out after their set to practice, because their back's engaged already. So you got to kind of feel it like you're feeling it in the gym in your posing.
Yeah. No, and again, it's like riding a bike with that lat spread. I mean, once you develop it, yeah, you're good to go for life, really. But I mean, yeah, it's taking people years upon years to do that. But do you use different training techniques when you're in your off season as opposed to your prep? Because I think some people, they might do a little bit more like maybe like time under tension or something like that when they're in their prep. But does your training techniques change at all, or do you just change up the weight that you use?
So my training changes in the fact that I'm just like my work. So I just do go heavier on my working sets if I can. But again, when I'm saying heavy, I've got to be careful because I don't want people to think that I just, it's all about heavy, 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 and no kind of like, quality. So I like to just go heavier, and I like to, just do at least like two heavy working sets, and then I'll do like two sets that are, so say if I did a leg press, I'll do two really heavy sets, maybe like the 8 to 10 rep range. Then I'll strip some plates off, and then I'll do like, a 15 to 20 rep range. So again, I try and just keep it so I'm getting that, you know, those movements for the mass building, but then those movements to really refine as well.
No, and that's again, yeah, that's really the difference right there. Because I mean, I don't know how many times I've almost shaken my head where people just don't know the difference between like prep training and off season training. Obviously, if they're not in the sport, where they just assume that you just must train the same. Your diet's different, and you might not do as much cardio. But it's like no, they're just so much more different than that. But yeah, it's just so great and enlightening to inform in this. And I mean, you said you like to be an example for the young girls out there. And what advice do you have for young girls, especially who are looking to maybe get into bodybuilding or just looking into getting in shape? Because I think that's a whole different set. I mean, obviously the guys it's a lot easier for us to do it just because of the societal mindset where it's like guys have more acceptance of being. So what advice do you have for girls that are thinking about maybe doing it? Because yeah, it is a a sport that's not as popular, and it's something that, like I told most of my guests when they're in their teens, it's not something that normal girls tell their parents, like, oh, I want to start really lifting weights seriously. So what advice do you have for them just to be able to maybe overcome the stigmas that they might have to endure?
Yeah, I think my advice would be, because obviously I really would love to see more girls like get into, weight training, not just, wanting to be bodybuilders necessarily, but just want to go in and not be nervous about, you know, going up to that weight section and standing next to the big guy and just doing your thing and not worrying. So I would say you've just got to eliminate any outside voices. because a lot of girls, I can sense it. A lot of them DM me, and they say like they would love to do what I do, but they're too afraid to take that step because of, I don't know, a boyfriend or family but I say to them that they really have to just listen to their own head, because if that person really loves you and they really love you for you, then they will accept it, and if they don't, then that's okay. uh, you know.
Yeah, it's just all about, yeah, just, and again, you're going to gain that self-confidence too from working out too. So I mean, it's going to impact all aspects of your life. So yeah, I'd say, yeah, just realize that, like, and make sure that you're doing it for yourself and not for someone else, because so many times people do it for someone else and then they lose interest, and then they just, yeah, so make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons too as well. But again, you guys, we cannot thank Rachael enough for coming back on the podcast and for giving us an update, and we look more than ever to talking to her again a year from now. But again, Rachael, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap things up?
Yeah, sorry, just going back on that, I just want to
No
add as
problem.
well. So just one more thing. Basically, I find a lot of women still say. So today, I was speaking to a girl, and she just finished her training, and she said to me, "Oh, I was just really scared to go into the men's section." And still, I looked at her and I said, "Hang on, this is I like to call it the workers section, actually." It is not the men's section. It is a section for people to lift and to get better. So I think, yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. But that's it. And I just want to thank you, because you are a great advocate. I see you have like all the, you know, females on here, and it is so great because we're all kind of so different, have different takes on things, but we're all like kind of on the same path.
Oh, that's why I keep having different ones. Because yeah, if you were all just the same bland person, then I would just be like, okay, I'd get bored after like the fifth time and be like, okay, I need to find new, different people to have on the podcast. But yeah, everyone has their own different story, and everyone has their own different results, and that has their own mindset. So yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to reach out to, because like, yeah, like we talk about too, like where everyone thinks that, like if I train just like that person, I'll look just like them. Where it's like this I mean, if I can do anything to prove that, where it's like, yeah, everyone's different and everyone has their own story. So that's why I appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate that you like that too, because yeah, I do this just because I love talking to people, and I think that female bodybuilders have an interesting story because they are underrepresented in anything that I think I can do. And I think, as people, especially like you, who are the young ones who are, up and coming, or are really the future of the sport. So yeah, it's so great to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Absolutely. Well, again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, and I'll leave a link to Rachael's Instagram down below, and you will get inspired to get in shape, like I always say. But again, Rachael, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.